Everyone has that one friend that will take things too far. Fortunately, they don't usually have adamantium claws and a healing factor. Say it with me. He's the best at what he does, and what he does isn't nice. There's a lot of shade under the umbrella of isn't nice, but for Wolverine, that generally means lots of punch stabbing and slashing and generally breaking stuff.
Sounds like fun.
If you take that behavior as a baseline, Wolverine on a good day, there have been some times where he's taken it to some rather intense extremes. From page and screen, here are a few. There are a few moments in education that stick with you. Things like I before E has enough exceptions that it's just confusing. The ability to name all the state capitals never comes up again. And say it with me, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
I am the smartest man alive!
Eventually you learn about regeneration by the science teacher talking about cutting flatworms in half, only to have them regenerate into 2 flatworms. Aside from giving you your first existential moment contemplating which flatworm is the original, it introduces you to the extremes of regeneration. So how much Wolverine has to be left for Wolverine to regenerate? He says the gene for regeneration is every one of his cells, as if to prove that there have been 2 extreme cases of regeneration. The first is in Annual X-Men number 11, where Xavier's star students faced off against the Horde who, among other things, tore out Wolverine's heart. Rude, but heart pulling is messy business, and a drop of Wolverine's blood gets on the crystal of ultimate vision, causing him to not only completely regenerate, but gain cosmic powers as well. Wolverine's not greedy though. Rapid healing that gives him an extended lifespan, animal senses, and extendable claws is enough, and he gave those cosmic powers back. That's not the only time he's come back from practically nothing. During the Civil War event, Wolverine took a full blast from Nitro, burning him down to his adamantium skeleton, giving him that gnarly chrome Ghost Rider look, only to have him regenerate slowly. Some teams are not exactly power balanced. Hawkeye might be an incredible marksman and a skilled super spy, but one of his teammates is the literal Norse god of thunder. Clint has to take it for granted that his teammate won't just squish him with a hammer because he's in a mood. And he's not the only one. The Hulk is arguably stronger, depending on how angry he is, and is completely prone to getting into moods. Wolverine is no stranger to moods himself, and for that reason, a lot of his teammates are a little uneasy that a mood will lead to Wolverine taking out that mood on his team, instead of putting on a patch and worrying the people of Madripoor. The start of Old Man Logan revealed that this is a reasonable fear, as it starts off with Mysterio fooling Wolverine that the X-Men are all Marvel's worst villains attacking the mansion, tricking him into killing off all the X-Men. Maybe all of those years that Magneto was marionetting Wolverine, he just needed to trick Wolverine into attacking the X-Men. Since making his debut in the pages of the Hulk, Wolverine and the Hulk have had a long and contentious history. They're the pair that just can't find a way to get along. They've had some brutal fights that include Wolverine stabbing the Hulk in the head and the Hulk ripping Wolverine in half. In this case, it's the top half that's the original Wolverine. Now that I think about it, what happened to the bottom half? Is it one of those William Riker, Thomas Riker things? Is there some alternate regrowth Logan just drinking quietly in Madripoor? Easily the craziest encounter is from the Old Man Logan storyline, where the Hulk started to experiment with being a kaiju and had to grow to enormous size, big enough to swallow Wolverine whole. Wolverine, being Wolverine, simply clawed his way back out like some sort of angry little xenomorph.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
One of the biggest litmus tests for a superpowered being is to compare it to the most destructive thing we have in the real world, the nuclear bomb. Most of your average superheroes would still meet their end after a nuclear blast, but there are a few heroes in the survive a nuclear blast category, and wouldn't you know it, Wolverine is one of them. In Venom number 9, Wolverine found himself in a love triangle of sorts between an offshoot of the Venom symbiote and a pair of ne'er-do-wells named Frankie and Vic. When the symbiote went for the obvious choice of a host and the regenerating adrenaline junkie, Frankie and Vic decided if they couldn't have it, no one could. In the most final way they could think of, nuking a small Canadian town. That's not very polite. Oh, story about that there, bud. When the smoke cleared, Logan got up from the bottom of the crater, brushed himself off, and then headed straight for the people who just tried to blow him up, as you do. In the movie The Wolverine, Logan even acted as a bomb shelter for someone else during the bombing of Hiroshima, leaving him just a little crispy on the back. One of the defining factors in comics regarding Wolverine is how short he is. He's 5 foot 3 inches of unbridled rage. This makes him, well, kind of tossable by the larger heroes. Rather famously, the fastball special has become a signature move between Colossus and Wolverine, where Colossus chucks Wolverine at whatever needs a good slice up. In the, let's say, problematic X-Men Origins Wolverine, we got a glimpse of that when Wolverine enacted his own fastball special. On the run from attackers in a helicopter, Wolverine decided the best defense was a good offense. After engaging the classic superhero claw turn, where a superhero tears up a piece of public road for a slightly tighter turning radius, Wolverine used his motorcycle as a launching pad, hurling himself at a helicopter, cutting it up in the process. A lot of heroes have taken on aircraft, but not many have cut a revolving rotor into 4 pieces as a part of the process. I don't think the bad guys are getting their helicopter deposit back. There's an unspoken rule with ninjas. The more there are, the less effective they are. You might think that it's because when it comes to ninjas, teamwork does not make the dream work, but really it's just a function of who the target is. Generally speaking, if this isn't the job for one ninja, it's not going to be the job for 100 ninjas. One ninja shows us how perilous the villain is. Dozens of ninjas shows us how awesome our protagonist is. Of course, Wolverine is in the latter category. Not only has he received that valuable ninja training, he's got all that other mutant superpower thing going for him. The ninja number rule was on full display when Logan went to raid the Black Ninja Clan in the Wolverine. After a game of who's the bad guy, some messing with his powers, and a kidnapping, Wolverine found himself having to infiltrate a town of ninjas. What ensued was the usual superhero mowing through a literal faceless horde of ninjas. But then they got inventive. First, stay really far away from the pointy bits coming out of his hands. Seems like the first thing you'd want to do, but alas. Then, everyone attacks more or less at once. The result was the most haphazard case of acupuncture, with cords leading from every arrow embedded in Wolverine's back. Like other instances of Wolverine shrugging things off, this does in fact lead to his capture, however. For the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there have been some big threats, but nothing like the rigid chin menace with the half the universe plan. This has created the idea of what is a Thanos-level threat. In the comics, there are plenty to choose from, and most teams have their own Thanos-level threat. For the Fantastic Four, it would be Galactus. With his Earth is delicious agenda, he becomes a bit of a global problem. The X-Men have Apocalypse, an ancient mutant who not only is powerful in his own right, but can juice the powers of other mutants to make up his 4 horsemen. While Apocalypse is one of many can end life on Earth if they really tried villains, he's also one of the big ones, which is all more concerning when Wolverine took on the role of Apocalypse. In the comic book story Age of Apocalypse, an alternate timeline saw the titular Apocalypse victorious after Charles Xavier had died young, with Logan being a member of Magneto's X-Men as Weapon X. Once Apocalypse was defeated, however, Weapon X campaigned to become Apocalypse, in the process waving off the Celestials from wiping the planet and getting a power boost to become Weapon Omega, so powerful that they had to switch alphabets. Most Age of adaptations don't really end up being an Age of. More of a that time when a legacy villain from the comics has had a one-off with title heroes. In the movies, neither Ultron nor Apocalypse ended up ruling over the planets that they menaced, with the heroes having to fight a guerrilla resistance against them. Age of Apocalypse also included very little Wolverine. A reboot of the series had taken a look at the early days of the X-Men before Wolverine joined, while Days of Future Past used the magic of time travel to find a way to put Wolverine back in the center of an X-Men movie. Age of Apocalypse rendered Wolverine into a cameo role, but they made the most of it. Age of Apocalypse took place right around the time that the secret Canadian Super Soldier Project lost their best candidate, Weapon X, violently. As the young X-Men went about their business, they were provided an assist by a Logan without memory, and in massive amounts of pain, eager to head straight towards anyone he felt had a hand in it, giving him what every superhero wants, a gnarly hallway fight. It's second only to smashing through a skylight. The one thing that never fully translated from the comics to the movies is one of Wolverine's defining characteristics, his Berserker Rage. Like his rival the Hulk, Wolverine is prone to giving over to his anger and unleashing his savage side until there's no one standing. Controlling that Berserker Rage is one of the main struggles Wolverine has, trying to go from force of nature to good guy. A guy with claws coming out of his hands going nutso on a horde of villains isn't the kind of thing that can slip under the PG-13 banner without most of it being implied. But an R rating can, in some cases, mean that a movie will open on 2/3 of the screens it would if its rating was PG-13. Then, an R-rated Deadpool changed everything. Wolverine followed suit with an R-rated swan song for the character in Logan that saw an aging Wolverine escorting a new generation of mutants to safety. To face down on a clone of his former self, Logan juiced himself, enabling the aging Logan to reconnect to his savage youth, to take out an army and a clone of himself. For bonus points, even X-23 got in on the action. For the most part, people try and think about X3 as little as possible. There are other landmarks in San Francisco. You don't have to mess up the Golden Gate Bridge to prove you're messing up San Francisco. Before Magneto messed up one of 3 bridges onto the peninsula, he held a forest rally for his troops that was attended by, who else? Wolverine. It may not have been a Berserker Rage, but it did result in quite a few members of the Brotherhood ending up being turned into Wolverine pincushions. Again, demonstrating that for the most part, folks are still alive because Logan is holding back. That is until Magneto showed up and reminded Logan that his skeleton is magnetic. Everyone in Madripoor knows that Patch is Wolverine, right? Short, muscle-bound guy with wild hair and a bad attitude. That's totally Wolverine. But what are you gonna do? Challenge him on that? Sure, Patch, Logan, Wolverine, James Howlett, I'll call you whatever. Just don't stab me.